All right, guys. Thank you so much for getting in this work a bit earlier. As I said, my goal is to give you guys some feedback right now. Look at it pretty quick, and within a day or so, Sunday night, that's when I'd like these finals to be in. Make some adjustments, and we'll get these done. Of course, one thing that I do want to make clear is that as we go throughout the semester, it's important to always kind of up your game every time. I expect, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but I do expect a higher level of work in general if you look at the semester from start to finish. So, just I don't want us to take steps back in the things that we're making. I'm not saying that anybody is, but we'll just make sure that our quality of work is always taking steps forward, and we'll be in a great spot by the end of the semester. So this is a good project that sort of builds off of that introduction from last week, and we'll go even further in the next week. So what you can expect is, Sunday night will be when we turn things in for this project. Monday, I'll have new stuff ready for you. I'm excited about that project, so more on that later. But let's just take care of some edits. I think some of you guys are closer than maybe others, but I want to give you guys as direct feedback as I can to give you guys the best chance at the best grade possible. So this is Taylor's HDR. I believe you're referring to the architecture firm out of Omaha, big company. So your imagery makes sense. I like the layers here. I like the simple line work that does create some movement and some focus on where it intersects. The typography is simple, but the company has that kind of streamlined look to it. So that's totally fine. You don't need to be super ornate with your type work, but I like how you've created some movement in here and moved some things around. One thing that I might suggest, Taylor, and this is actually, so real quick, this actually goes for everybody. I want us to think about now this is more of a marketing strategic train of thought, but what is your ad trying to do? What is the call to action of this piece? What that means is, where are you pushing them to next? What do you want the person, where do you want them to go? Usually it's a social media account, a website. And so I'd like us each to add some context somewhere, like check us out at wherever that is.com. And just making sure that the ad has very distinct purpose and that there's a clear path you're trying to push them toward. And so that gives the ad some more context. So let's make sure that we include a call to action of some kind, which is basically talking about where do you want them to go and what do you want them to do, what's that website, etc. So think about that and make sure that something like that is included in your ad, because that's generally a reason why that we create ads anyway. So for everyone, and I'll kind of check everybody's out and see if you have that or not, but just make sure that is part of it, because again, it gives the whole purpose of the advertisement some more context. Anyway, one thing, Taylor, I might suggest too is maybe you could use some kind of headline somewhere. I know that you said that you're still working on this and things, and this is a strong first draft, but I think that there's still something maybe you could do in between this and then this. What is maybe a headline that you could potentially maybe find a fancier font or something, maybe not fancy or ornate, but you know what I'm saying? I think there's something else you could do maybe with some type that kind of connects the company with this body of text down here. Just my thoughts, but overall the design is quite strong. So I think it's just some content changes maybe, or some additions. Okay, Alyssa. So it looks like that she went down the route of doing that thing that I kind of demonstrated last week, and this is really cool, and I think that layering is very effective. So again, with yours, Alyssa, let's add in somewhere like Nike.com, or go to follow us on Instagram or something. Let's have a call to action somewhere. But this is well balanced. It's centered. There's action, activity, and movement. And there's layers here, and I dig the white and teal color combo. But one thing that I would suggest, and I'm going to ask you to do this, that I might not ask anybody else. I want you to create 2 more versions of this. But the only changes that you'll make to them is changing the color of the background and the color of the font. I kind of want to see some different color combinations of this exact thing. And again, that should not take very much time at all. It's just kind of like adding a background, a rectangle, and then changing the colors of both the text and the background, and then maybe turning in a few different options. Those changes should be pretty fast and pretty easy, but I think that whole act, you doing that is an example of how someone might create a few different options and then propose those options to their boss, whoever's in charge of this project. So I want to see what you can do with creating a few different color combinations of this exact thing. Keep the athlete in that same black and white monochromatic color scheme, but do change the colors of the background. It might mean that you need to find a white Nike logo, but I'm challenging you to create a couple more color combinations of this thing, and then also adding on the call to action. Okay, the Photoshop guy himself, Anthony. I can tell that this is a Photoshop job for sure. I really, really dig this. There's a lot of really cool things going on in here. The textures really give you the feeling of the product and of the brand. A couple things that I might suggest, and there's not a whole lot here. Is there a way you can make this, if you have to redraw it, I don't want you to do that necessarily, but is there a way that you can make this logo in the same vivid purple as the rest of what's going on here? I think that it just looks a little bit too faded, and that it kind of loses its impact a little bit. Am I being a little bit nitpicky? Maybe, but Anthony, I'm challenging you to maybe increase the quality of that color-wise, however that might be. And for you as well, what's that call to action? What is the thing that you want them to do next? Honestly, for you, it might just be adding the words try this new flavor. But sometimes just saying that a new flavor exists doesn't give a consumer enough direction sometimes to go out there and find it. So if you can, add some kind of call to action, think about what is it that this ad is trying to get the consumer to do, and then applying that into your design and seeing about making this a little bit more vivid so it matches the rest. But I love the work you've done with those characters. Okay, Anna, I really like yours. I think it's very dynamic. You did a lot of good, really cool things with how that water kind of weaves in and out of this text. And I opened the Photoshop file, and it's very complex, the kind of work that you've done there. And so I appreciate all the detail work and how very intentional you've been with adding little things like this glow effect to this text, which does help it pop out quite a bit more. So that's awesome. I'm not sure that I would do a whole lot of changes to what you've done with the typography here. What I might suggest, though, is that let's think about that call to action. What's that thing that you want the person to do that sees this ad? Do you want them to go find it at a particular store? Is it being sold somewhere? Is it, for this one, you might push them to a social media account, go follow us here, or check us out on our website, whatever you want that to be. I think you have some space where you can create something somewhere, either, I think probably up here. That would kind of work the balance pretty well, where you can kind of just add that information. So with yours, honestly, I would just find a way to design in that call to action, and I think that you're golden. Okay, let's go. Bailey, I have yours up here. So in this one, I like the direction you're heading, and I like the style of this. It's got a vintage feel to it. So basically what we just need to do here is make sure this is and feels like an advertisement. So what are you trying to get someone to do as a result? We all know that sometimes brand awareness or just putting an image of something out there is sometimes enough to get a reaction from people. But I think for this, let's try to add a little more content to it, and some more context. So again, thinking about what you want people to do, this is the most challenging one as far as that call to action. You don't go follow the Eiffel Tower on Instagram. You don't visit the Eiffel Tower's website, typically. But what I do think is that this is probably associated with a tourist organization of some kind. Now, if you think about every state, for example, has their own tourism, department, and then you'll oftentimes see an advertisement for Chimney Rock, and then it's associated with the Nebraska Tourism Commission. So I'm not sure what that situation is like over in France, but what I would have you do is I want you to add some more content to this, to make it a little more complete. I want you to think about this in the context of the city and think about, okay, this is probably coming from the city itself or the country saying, come explore Paris, France, and check out the Eiffel Tower. So add a little more context to this, some more content, some more words, and you might want to, you might want to add some more visuals to this, but sometimes, simple things are good too. But I would challenge you to reevaluate how you're being clear about where this is coming from and what the purpose of this is. So I want you to think about it more in the spectrum of a tourism organization that is using the Eiffel Tower to push, the tourism mission of that particular group. So think about it more in that context. I think that will allow you to add more content and potentially more visuals to this. And you can include things from around France too. Maybe you have other illustrations of different things, but you're featuring the Eiffel Tower in this one. So anyway, that is the entirety of my feedback for you guys. I want you to know too that I kind of just reacted to these things as I see them. I don't prepare my feedback. I think it's nice to be able to just see it and give you guys my first thoughts. Sometimes they're a bit jumbled, and if that's the case in any of this stuff, let me know, and I'll be happy to expand on that for you. So let's make some edits over the weekend. Let's get it as close as we can to Sunday night, that deadline. If you're kind of just if this window is too tight for you, I can work with you to carry that over to Monday if you need me to. But try and see if we can finish this out this weekend. Okay, after that, we'll move on and build on this knowledge of typography into doing more complicated things. That doesn't mean that it's more difficult, but it's more of a complete sort of layout, and more on that coming on Monday. But for now, let's just worry about applying some of these edits. I think for everybody, that call to action aspect, what is that thing that we want the consumer to do as a result of this advertisement? That's, I think, across the board, something we can all think about and add in to complete this advertisement, because that is the nature of this design. So let's do that, and I'll be in touch with you guys. If you have any questions, of course, reach out, and then we'll go from there.